Good evening, everyone. This is Pastor Torri from Union Congregational Church. And I know Lent is over, but a few people asked if we could continue to do Wednesday nights and something on Wednesday nights. So I thought it would kind of be a cool experiment to do stories with Torri. And there are some weeks that are going to be a comical, fun story. Other weeks are going to be a more serious story. And we will see how it goes. This week, our story is from Chicken Soup for the Christian Soul. And it's a short story called What Was in Jeremy's Egg? And I thought it might be appropriate to do this story in an empty church. And it's a reminder that churches are empty right now, and that's okay. The tomb was empty, and that was a really good thing. So I thought it would be kind of a neat view for you to see an empty church as we read this story called What Was in Jeremy's Egg? Jeremy was born with a twisted body, a slow mind, and a chronic terminal illness that had been slowly killing him all of his young life. Still, his parents had tried to give him as normal a life as possible and had sent him to St. Teresa's elementary school. At the age of 12, Jeremy was only in second grade, seemingly unable to learn. His teacher, Doris Miller, often became exasperated with him. He would squirm in his seat, drool, and make grunting noises. At other times, he spoke clearly and distinctively, as if a spot of light had penetrated the darkness of his brain. Most of the time, however, Jeremy irritated his teacher. One day, she called his parents and asked them to come to St. Teresa's for a consultation. As the Foresters sat quietly in the empty classroom, Doris said to them, "Jeremy really belongs in a special school. It isn't fair to him to be with younger children who don't have learning problems. Why, there's a 5-year gap between his age and the other students." Mrs. Forrester cried softly into a tissue while her husband spoke. "Miss Miller," he said, "there is no school of that kind nearby. It would be a terrible shock to Jeremy if we had to take him out of this school. We know he really likes it here." Doris sat for a long time after they left, staring at the snow outside of the window. Its coldness seemed to seep into her soul. She wanted to sympathize with the Foresters. After all, their only child had a terminal illness. But it wasn't fair to keep him in her class. She had 18 other youngsters to teach, and Jeremy was a distraction. Furthermore, he would never learn to read or write. Why waste any more time trying? As she pondered the situation, guilt washed over her. "Oh God," she said aloud, "here I am complaining when my problems are nothing compared to that poor family. Please, God, help me be more patient with Jeremy." From that day on, she tried hard to ignore Jeremy's noises and his blank stares. Then one day, he limped to her desk, dragging his bad leg behind him. "I love you, Miss Miller," he exclaimed, loud enough for the whole class to hear. The other students snickered, and Doris's face turned red. She stammered, Why, that's very nice, Jeremy. Now please take your seat. Spring came, and the children talked excitedly about the coming of Easter. Doris told them the story of Jesus, and then, to emphasize the idea of new life springing forth, she gave each of the children a large plastic egg. Now, she said to them, I want you to take this home and bring it back tomorrow with something inside that shows new life. Do you understand? Yes, Miss Miller, the children responded enthusiastically, all except for Jeremy. He just listened intently. His eyes never left her face. He didn't even make his usual noises. Had he understood what she had said about Jesus' death and resurrection? Did he understand the assignment? Perhaps she could call his parents and explain the project to them. That evening, Doris's kitchen sink stopped up. She called the landlord and waited an hour for him to come by and unclog it. After that, she still had to shop for groceries, iron a blouse, prepare a vocabulary test for the next day, and she completely forgot about phoning Jeremy's parents. The next morning, 19 children came to school, laughing and talking as they placed their eggs in a large wicker basket on Miss Miller's desk. After they completed their math lesson, it was time to open the eggs. In the first egg, Doris found a flower. Oh yes, a flower is certainly a sign of new life, she said. When plants peek through the ground, we know that spring is here. A small girl in the first row waved her arm. That's my egg, Miss Miller, she called out. The next egg contained a plastic butterfly, which looked very real. Doris held it up. We all know that a caterpillar changes and grows into a butterfly, a beautiful butterfly. Yes, that is new life too. Little Judy smiled proudly and said, Miss Miller, that one's mine. Next, Doris found a rock with moss on it. She explained that moss, too, showed life. Billy spoke up from the back of the classroom. My daddy helped me, as he beamed. Then Doris opened the fourth egg, and she gasped. The egg was empty. Surely it must be Jeremy's, she thought, and of course he didn't understand the instructions. If only she had not forgotten to phone his parents. Because she did not want to embarrass him, she quietly set the egg aside and reached for another. Flustered, Doris replied, I skipped a line, sorry. Suddenly, Jeremy spoke up. Miss Miller, aren't you going to talk about my egg? Flustered, Doris replied, but Jeremy, your egg is empty. He looked into her eyes and said softly, yes, but Jesus' tomb was empty too, right? Time stopped. When she could speak again, Doris asked him, do you know why the tomb was empty, Jeremy? Oh, yes, Jeremy exclaimed. Jesus was killed and put in there, and then God raised him up. The recess bell rang. While the children excitedly ran out to the schoolyard, Doris cried. The cold inside her heart melted completely away. 3 months later, Jeremy died. Those who paid their respects at the funeral were surprised to see 19 eggs on top of the casket. Every single one of them was empty. And this story was written by Ida Mae Campbell. I think that's a beautiful story. I know that there is a lot happening in this world right now. A lot of suffering, a lot of death. But in the midst of everything that is happening, the hurt, the fear, the pain, the loss, there is, in the middle of all of it, a hope. And a hope that only comes from God. Because you see, God is in it with us. You know, we've developed this saying lately that we are all in this together. And some of us are in more dangerous areas than others. But the great thing is that whether we are in a more dangerous area such as New York City or a less dangerous area like northern Minnesota, we are all in this together. And in the midst of us being in this all together, God is in it as well. He is with us. He is for us because he loves us. And the hope is in the emptiness of that tomb. Blessings to you all. Amen.